All right, let's dive right in. We're talking about how AI is unleashing what you can only call a tsunami on modern defense. And look, this isn't some far-off sci-fi future we're talking about. This is a revolution, and it's rewriting the rules of war right now as we speak. Our source material really kicks things off with a punch right here. The window for gradual adaptation has closed. I mean, let that sink in. The message is crystal clear. There's no time to ease into this. The change isn't a slow-moving current. It's a tidal wave. It's violent, and the stakes could not be any higher. And there's a name for this new reality: hyperwar. Now, this isn't just about bolting some new gadgets onto a tank. No, this is a fundamental paradigm shift where the sheer speed of machine decision-making is making human cognition, our ability to think in the heat of battle, obsolete. We're talking about a total change in the very nature of conflict. So that brings us to our first really critical point. This idea that AI is some problem we can kick down the road to the 2030s. It's not just wrong, it's a completely dangerous delusion. The future didn't just show up a little early, it has completely collapsed into the present. The timeline we have to adapt isn't a decade, it's right now, today. Okay, to really get why this is happening so fast, we have to talk about something called the OODA loop. Think of this as the heartbeat of combat. You observe what's happening, you orient yourself to the situation, you decide what to do, and then you act. Whichever side can cycle through that loop faster wins. It's that simple. And AI is putting that entire cycle on hyperdrive. And this slide? Wow, it just lays bare the absolutely staggering difference in speed. We're not talking about being, 10 or 20% faster. We're talking about a human-led system that operates in minutes, going up against an AI-driven one that operates in seconds. The outcome here is brutal and it's simple. A force that thinks in minutes will be annihilated by an adversary that acts in seconds. Now, this insane speed advantage is causing a full-blown revolution in the air. For decades, the thinking has been that air dominance comes from having a few incredibly expensive, highly advanced fighter jets. Well, that whole idea is being completely turned on its head by a totally new kind of threat. And this is the key. You have to understand the concept of swarming. This is not just throwing a bunch of drones at a target and hoping for the best. We're talking about thousands of cheap drones that are all talking to each other, coordinating their movements, and executing a complex attack plan together, all without a human being controlling them second by second. It's coordinated autonomous mass. It's a game changer. And this creates an economic mouth that is just completely, utterly unsustainable for traditional forces. Just look at these numbers. You're using a $2 million state-of-the-art air defense missile to shoot down a $5,000 kamikaze drone. You can't win that math. It's a losing proposition every single time. And this chart just drives home how absurd the situation is. I mean, the picture says it all, right? That massive bar versus that tiny little sliver. Sure, you can afford to shoot down the first drone, and the 10th, and maybe even the 100th. But what about the 1,000th? The economics are literally designed to bleed a modern military dry. And make no mistake, this isn't just an airborne threat. The exact same logic is playing out at sea. You've got autonomous ships, autonomous submarines, and they're being used to create these huge no-go zones that could make even a multi-billion-dollar aircraft carrier a sitting duck in coastal waters. Okay, so this brings us to what might be the single most dangerous misunderstanding out there right now among military planners. It's called the hardware fallacy. And it's this belief that you can solve this problem just by buying more stuff. Which naturally leads people to ask this, right? Okay, so drones are the future. The answer must be to just buy more drones, yeah? Well, no. It's so much more complicated than that. Here's the critical distinction you have to understand. A modern military has two parts. You've got the muscle. That's the gear, the drones, the missiles, the tanks. You can buy that stuff off the shelf. But then you have the nervous system. That's the command and control, the decision-making logic that connects all that muscle and makes it work together at lightning speed. And that has to be built. It has to be integrated from the ground up. And I just love this line from the source material because it says it all. A nervous system cannot be imported in a shipping container. You can order all the hardware you want, but you can't just buy a fully integrated, battle-ready AI command structure and have it delivered. That kind of real capability has to be developed from within. So if you can't just buy this nervous system, who runs it? Well, that question leads us to the most difficult part of this whole new era. The incredible, almost unimaginable pressure that's now being placed on human commanders. And this is where we get this concept of the centaur model, like the mythical creature that was half human, half horse. The idea is that the modern commander has to become a new kind of hybrid, part human intuition and part machine partner. It's a truly symbiotic relationship where you're working with the AI, not just telling it what to do. And this new role comes with something called the burden of override. A commander has 3 insanely high-stakes jobs now. First, you have to be able to evaluate the AI's logic, to understand where its blind spots might be. Second, you have to have the guts to trust your human intuition and override the machine when its perfectly logical answer is still the wrong one. And third, and this is the big one, you have to take complete and total accountability for that decision. And this quote just nails that last point. The entire culture has to change. The computer told me to do it just cannot be an acceptable excuse anymore. In a weird way, in this age of machine intelligence, human accountability becomes more critical than it has ever been. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. We've talked about the speed, we've talked about the economics, the hardware, the human challenges, and after looking at all of it, our source material comes to a pretty stark, inescapable conclusion. And it's also so important to remember this isn't just about physical combat. Adversaries are already deep into what's called cognitive warfare. They're using generative AI to pump out disinformation on an industrial scale. And what's the goal? It's to hack the human operating system, to demoralize a population, to sow chaos, and to break a nation's will to fight before a single shot is even fired. And, well, here it is, the single bluntest takeaway from the entire analysis. To keep relying on old ways of war, on legacy platforms like big aircraft carriers and traditional tanks, without a deep, urgent, all-in integration of AI, is being called a strategic suicide pact. Which really just leaves us with this final question to think about. We've established that the window for slow, gradual change slammed shut. We've seen that victory and defeat are now measured in seconds. So in this new age of algorithmic war, the real question isn't if we need to adapt, but what is the truly catastrophic cost of even a moment's hesitation?